Our boy suddenly opens his eyes abruptly. From his expression, we can tell he is someone reborn and has returned to the past, only to discover that he is 15 years old. So, how did it all begin? This manhwa begins with our protagonist, No Hyungjin, finds a knife stabbed to his chest. No Hyungjin, a genius and the youngest lawyer with a 95% win rate, always fights for justice. Confused and demanding to know why this is happening, he finds himself face to face with a hooded man with a malicious grin. The hooded man with a malicious grin reminds Hyungjin that this isn't the States, and he should know better. Hyungjin is clearly annoyed but suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. The hooded man tells Hyungjin that if he wanted justice, he should have gone to the state instead of stirring up trouble. Hyungjin, sweating bullets, asks if they are from the Doin group in Korea. The hooded man, now staring down and towering over Hyungjin, reveals that he shouldn't have messed with the president's cousin of the group and asks why he didn't avoid the case like everyone else. Blaming Hyungjin's stubbornness, the man says this is what he got for it. Hyungjin then questions why their organization, the National Intelligence Service, NIS, is involved and wonders if their task is to protect the country. The hooded man explains that Hyungjin is gravely mistaken. Their job isn't to protect the country, he said while holding the knife. It's to protect the president ending his life. After saying this, the hooded man orders his men to clean up the scene, meaning they plan to burn Hyungjin's body with gasoline. As Hyungjin's consciousness slowly drifts away, the scene shifts to an ancient palace, a courtroom belonging to Emperor Yeomra, one of the rulers of the underground in Korean mythology. Inside the courtroom, the emperor, with a commanding tone, comments that Hyungjin died before his time, causing one of the court officials to agree and question what they should do. Yeomra wonders how to handle it since Hyungjin has no body, which is problematic. Besides the unexpected death, Hyungjin is someone who hasn't died before. Another court official, with his head lowered, mentions that they sent Hyungjin to Earth because of its corruption, and it would be problematic if he returns as he is. Yeomra waves his hand, indicating he already knows this. Looking at Hyungjin's soul, Yeomra wonders what they can do. After some thinking, the emperor concludes that they need a different approach, an expedient solution since they are out of options. The whole court is astonished, questioning if the emperor plans to regress Hyungjin, stating it would be inadvisable. The direct official informs Yeomra that the other gods will not like this idea, but Yeomra is prepared to face the consequences. The official explains that regression might not help Hyungjin much, but Yeomra quickly agrees, stating he knows and that's why he will give Hyungjin something to assist him this time. Yeomra raises his hand, glowing with different waves of energy, and commands Hyungjin's soul to go forth. Immediately, Hyungjin's soul ascends to the sky and out of the dimension, while Yeomra inwardly hopes Hyungjin might survive this time. Suddenly, Hyungjin abruptly opens his eyes, as if waking from a long nightmare, accidentally smashing his head on the top bunk. Holding his head in agony, he hears someone asking if he is stupid. Frightened by the dark expression of the figure, it turns out to be his elder sister, Hyuna. She reminds Hyungjin that it's been a month and wonders how his head is still okay after hitting it so many times. Hyungjin, calling her name, asks if she is still alive. She frowns, thinking Hyungjin has lost it, not forgetting to mention she is 17 and still healthy, while Hyungjin, bewildered, realizes he is currently 15 years old. Wondering if he can't do basic math, she instructs him to go to sleep, which he immediately agrees to. As Hyungjin lays on his bed, he wonders if his death was just a dream. He vividly remembers it, clenching his chest and wondering what's happening. The scene shifts to the following day. Both siblings prepare to leave for school, not forgetting to say goodbye to their parents. Hyuna, enthusiastic, tells him to keep up, reminding him she won't take responsibility if they arrive at school late. Lost in thought, Hyungjin looks at his palm and name tag on his uniform, realizing he is back in middle school and wondering what is happening. What interests him is that Hyuna is alive. Hyungjin explains that his sister didn't have the best life. She married a popular boy from school who wasn't a good husband. They had 2 kids and ended in divorce after an accident took the children. She decided to move to Japan for a quiet life but died in a tsunami, and her body was never recovered. At this moment, Hyuna is alive, and they are both walking to school. The idea hits him like a truck that he has this memory, which is strange, but he realizes that she will meet her future husband today, who is around. The no-good bastard will destroy her future. Unsure if this is a dream or reality, Hyungjin decides to check for himself, dashing off while Hyuna calls his name, asking where he is going. After running for some time, Hyungjin is a bit out of breath, but remains determined to find the bastard. Just then, he hears something that catches his attention. Sneaking a glance, he finally finds the guy and recognizes him as Jo Hyukwoo, who is bullying a weaker student. Excited, Hyungjin thinks if this is real, this is his chance to change everything. Seeing Jo Hyukwoo and his friend bullying and asking the weaker student when he became a retard, the weaker one tries to tell them he doesn't have money and begs for forgiveness. However, the bully makes it clear that he wants the money, or else the weaker student will be beaten up. The guy sticks to his guns, stating he doesn't have any money today and promises to get some tomorrow, while Jo Hyukwoo wonders if he has lost it. Now stomping on the poor guy, Jo Hyukwoo makes it clear that if he wants it, he should do it and not make excuses. Meanwhile, Hyungjin watches the whole thing like it's in 4K, thinking that at this rate, the guy might end up in a hospital. Our boy can't help but curse his sister's future boyfriend, calling him a piece of trash. Next, we see THR name tag of the victim. Back at home at night, our boy thinks of a possible solution, knowing he can't let this one slide. We see his plans scribbled on paper, planning to split Jo Hyukwoo and his sister. Biting his pen, he comments that he needs to prevent them from being together in order to change the future. While brainstorming, something in the waste bin catches his attention. Picking it up, he smiles mischievously, realizing it's a love letter to his sister after reading it out loud. Our boy wonders who was the poor guy that decided to make a fool of himself. But looking at the name Park Gwang-sik, his amusement faded. After some time, the realization dawns on him. He immediately realizes it was the bullied kid and understands why the guy felt familiar. Because in the future, the guy became a prosecutor known as the Grim Reaper of school violence. He had no mercy when it came to school violence. In the end, he locked up all the people that bullied him for life. Now everything made sense and our boy decided to look into it. The next day at school, the same routine continues, but this time there were 4 students. Hyungjin didn't just watch but filmed the whole thing in 4K, thanking his dad for the camera. After some time, he decided it was enough and moved to his next plan. Our boy is excited. He can't wait to fix his sister's life and deal with this bastard of a bully. The scene shifts to a signpost of a cram school in the city. Inside, we see our bullied friend Park Gwang-sik coming out and grumbling about school life and being beaten up by the bullies continually. Suddenly, our boy cuts him off by calling Park's name, addressing him as a senior, leaving him puzzled and questioning our boy's identity. When he asks about our boy's business with him, Hyungjin heads straight to the point, stating he came because of Jo Hyukwoo. Immediately, Park becomes alarmed and on edge. Sensing his tense expression, he assures him he didn't come under the bully's orders and expresses how much he hates the guy. Hyungjin also points out that Jo Hyukwoo was hitting on his sister despite being a scumbag. Park is a bit puzzled by the word sister, but our boy reminds him by calling her name, making the guy flustered. Then, with a more serious tone, Hyungjin asks if Park still likes his sister. Talk about being direct. Park doesn't hide it and agrees, noting that if he said no, he would be lying. Our boy, excited, holds Park's hand, asking if he would like to go on a date with her sometime. But the guy shows a defeated expression, explaining to Hyungjin that she is already with Jo Hyukwoo, adding that the guy might kill him if he finds out. Our boy surprises him, stating both of them shouldn't fight with fists but rather use their heads. And then he whispers his plan to Park. Listening to our boy's words, Park Gwang-sik becomes more surprised. Astonished, he comments it was nice and asks how our boy knew all this. Well, he can't say he's from the future, so the best excuse was that he saw it in a dream. Back at school, Park Gwang-sik's bullies continue their activity, beating the poor guy. Now annoyed and fed up, Park tells them to stop, adding that he's dirt poor and has no money. You see, the bullies weren't just taking pocket change. They always took $50 to $100 daily, and now the sum taken is around $6,000. But Jo Hyuk-woo isn't impressed, wondering what he gains by calculating the amount and why he is ranting. Now closing the distance with an intimidating tone, he comments that Park must have lost his mind and reveals he's part of a gang called Primo Gang. However, he is stunned as Park states he shouldn't make serious dry jokes, calling them third-rate school bullies. Jo Hyuk-woo, in a fit of rage, delivers a punch without warning to Park's stomach. As he agonizes in pain, Jo Hyuk-woo informs him that the Primo Gang has 20 members and ending him will be easier than finding a place to smoke. Now adding they will kindly teach him a lesson. Park could only endure the pain from being hit continuously, thinking to himself that the time will come for his revenge. The scene shifts to the teacher's office. Park explains the entire situation to the teacher, from the money stolen to the part about the bullies being in a gang. But the teacher's advice was for him to endure it. When Park asks what he meant by that, the teacher, or rather the fool, struggles to come up with a reasonable explanation. However, Park understands the hidden message. The teacher wants him to deal with his personal problem alone and not drag people into it. At the police station, Park requests protection. He was asking because neither his parents nor teachers would listen or believe him, no matter how much he asked. But the officer waves him off like chasing a fly, adding he shouldn't disturb the police with small issues, and if he comes next time, he will be thrown into the cell for interference with police duties. Now shifting to our boy and Park, he asks if it was enough, not forgetting to mention all adults are the same. But our boy, raising a finger, exclaims they are almost done and only one last thing remains. The scene changes to a group of people clearly looking for Park for snitching to the head counselor and planning to teach him a lesson. Spotting the residence with Park's family nameplate, Jo Hyuk-woo, with a face mask, shows excitement and orders his boys. Next, they position and climb the fence and enter the premises of Park's house, spotting him in the process. Park is immediately stunned to see him, raising his bat high and pointing it at Park inside the house. Jo Hyuk-woo declares with a menacing expression that he has found him. The window is smashed before Park could process what was happening. Entering inside, Jo Hyuk-woo apologizes for surprising him, though it was not sincere. With a sly expression, he reminds Park of his previous warning. Park is visibly shaken as Jo Hyuk-woo continues, saying he promised to end him if he continued messing around. Park Gwang-sik, now sitting on the floor of the living room, tells Jo Hyuk-woo to wait and asks what he plans to do. On the other hand, Hyuk-woo is already mid-swing, expressing his desire to end him for snitching on them. Park can only brace himself for the incoming hit. Luckily, the house alarm sounds, annoying Jo Hyuk-woo with the bad timing. Before leaving, Hyuk-woo points the bat at Park, stating he's lucky, and they will finish it at school tomorrow. With that, the gang of fools leaves, grumbling about the hassle. However, with a determined look, Park mutters Jo Hyuk-woo's name while cursing. Suddenly, his moment is interrupted by his phone ringing. Answering the call, it turns out to be Hyungjin on the other side, and they decide it's time to put an end to Jo Hyuk-woo. The next day, the Park family is dismayed by the destruction caused by the bullies. A man comments on how bullying their son wasn't enough, wondering if they should be called bullies or gangsters at this point. He suggests they all go to school to settle it, but Hyungjin dismisses the idea, pointing out the school will only make them write an apology letter, 2 pages at best. When Park's dad asks what they should do, as they can't let it slide, Hyungjin explains that he and Park have already made a plan, adding they knew something like this would eventually happen. This leaves Park's dad surprised. Hyungjin clarifies, stating they will send the fools to a place worse than hell. The scene shifts to the Supreme Prosecutor's office, called the State Attorney in the States, where they decide to file a complaint. The man at the desk advises them to do it at the police station. Hyungjin immediately cuts him off, stating they know that already and they can also do the same at the State Attorney. The man, with a dismissive look, sighs and asks what they want and if they are filing a kid-fighting complaint, thinking to himself how kiddish this seems. Hyungjin, in lawyer mode, starts dropping legal bomb statements like habitual special intimidation, special extortion, and habitual special violence. The guy is immediately wide-eyed, but Hyungjin isn't done. He continues with residential trespassing and damage to personal property. But our boy wasn't done cooking. He then passes the folder to the man at the desk, which contains evidence in the form of photos. Now, with a serious look, Hyungjin says there's one more thing. The man, now anxious, wonders what that could be. It turns out to be a written accusation. The guy is shocked at how detailed it is and asks if they plan to report to the police. As in Korea, accusation here means reporting a crime you're not necessarily a victim of. Both Hyungjin and Park agree with a firm yes. We then see Park heading home at night. Suddenly, he glances slightly as someone calls out, and without looking, we know it's Jo Hyuk-woo and his gang. One comments he finally arrived, while another is pissed he took his time to come. Jo Hyuk-woo remarks it's been a while and talks about how Park filed a complaint against him. They then grab Park Gwang-sik, leaving his glasses behind. The scene shifts to a restricted area in the mountains, perfect for their intentions. Park is pushed like a rag doll and falls with a thud. Jo Hyuk-woo, holding a box cutter, asks if Park thought he would let it slide after reporting and filing a complaint against him. He plans to make this place Park's resting place and starts by playing with him a bit. Park tells him to stop, asking what he is doing. Suddenly, Jo Hyuk-woo pauses as he notices a flash of light from behind and a voice telling him to stop loudly. It turns out to be guys in blue telling them to freeze and drop their weapons, also warning to open fire. Jo Hyuk-woo is immediately petrified, wondering how the police found them. Park Gwang-sik shows him his phone with a mocking laugh, revealing he has been in a call with the police the entire time. Jo Hyuk-woo, frightened to the point of his soul leaving his body, wonders if Park did what he thinks. Park confirms, explaining that not only has he been in a call with the police, but they also record calls, meaning Jo Hyuk-woo is ultimately screwed. Not just that, even the conversation with the teacher was recorded. The foolish teacher is sweating as Hyungjin points out the teacher's failure to meet their obligations by denying requests for help. The accessories, meaning someone who aids in a crime, to the bullying were overlooked, pointing out the serious offense and trouble the teacher is in. The teacher asks what can be done and what Hyungjin wants. Hyungjin checks his phone and announces to the teacher that Jo Hyuk-woo has been arrested and charged with attempted murder, leaving the teacher wide-eyed and questioning. Hyungjin calmly explains that Jo Hyuk-woo was caught by the police while trying to murder Park in the mountains. Hyungjin then asks once more what the teacher will do about it, and the teacher facepalms and asks for Hyungjin's help. Hyungjin states he needs the teacher to tell the truth and to bring all the victims of the bullies to help file another report. The teacher immediately agrees. The scene shifts to a cafe with Hyungjin and Park chatting. Park is concerned about Jo Hyuk-woo and asks what will happen to him. Hyungjin explains that Jo Hyuk-woo will be imprisoned for at least 10 years. Park is shocked as the narrator mentions he now wears contacts since he lost his glasses. Also, the complaint filed by Hyungjin contains the exact crimes, and the police must conduct a special investigation for each one. When that happens, Jo Hyuk-woo won't be able to get off easily. Hyungjin points out they filed individual complaints for each crime. Here's what the narrator means. If there are multiple victims, let's say 50, each victim's case will be treated separately as an offense. Even if each student files a small offense which could lead to a 4-month sentence, it will pile up to 200 months. The court usually groups similar cases to avoid oversentencing, but this results in a high degree of punishment. This is separate from settling with victims financially as compensation. In a few words, Jo Hyuk-woo is totally screwed. Park asks if this was Hyungjin's plan from the start, using the school, teachers, and police. Hyungjin affirms, stating it was a fun trick he learned from a friend. When Park asks about the identity of the person, Hyungjin just gives him a you-know-who look. However, Park is clueless, and someone might say he looks dashing without his glasses, while Hyungjin thinks he learned all this from the Grim Reaper of school violence, himself in the future. Suddenly, someone arrives at the cafe. It turns out to be none other than Hyungjin's elder sister. Park is flustered and surprised to see her. Hyungjin remarks that she took her time to arrive, teasing her. She fires back, wondering how a penniless brat like her little brother is eating ice cream he can't afford. Hyungjin replies she should help him then, making her a little pissed in a friendly way. Immediately, Park seizes the opportunity to introduce himself, stuttering a little. She, on the other hand, wonders about his identity. Hyungjin, like a wingman, formally introduces Park as his senior and the one who helps him study. They attend the same school. Hyungjin further explains Park is the top of their class and asks why his sister didn't recognize him. We already sense the chemistry as she quickly introduces herself. Park is pleased to meet her, and it becomes a date. Hyungjin loves what he sees. His small project of saving his elder sister was a success. Later that evening, at Hyungjin's house, his sister is searching for something, almost swearing she left it there. Hyungjin, however, comments she should check in her study book. She immediately scolds him for eavesdropping and tells him to go to sleep. Lying down with a smile, Hyungjin thinks it's really peaceful. Oh, it's the red envelope we've seen in the previous chapter. The next chapter begins with our boy's sister receiving a message from Park Gwang-sik, asking her out. She is thrilled that he texted back, and the timing is perfect. She agrees to have dinner with him. However, our boy feels somewhat annoyed by the continuous messaging that causes her phone to vibrate. When he comments on the distraction, she teasingly replies, asking if our boy will be responsible if she misses a text. Despite his irritation, our boy is inwardly pleased, knowing he successfully altered the future for his sister. Soon, it's dinner time at their home. Both siblings thank their parents for the food. Our boy can't help but compliment his mom on how delicious the meal is. Unexpectedly, his dad asks about school. Watching our boy devour his meal, he inquires if something interesting is happening. Our boy realizes this question is because he skipped some classes to help Park. He tries to come up with a reasonable explanation, but his dad reassures him that they are not trying to scold him. They just need to know the reason. His mom agrees. Our boy ponders deeply, knowing he can't tell them the truth and doesn't have anyone to befriend at school. Finally, he confessed to his parents that he doesn't want to go to school anymore. His dad abruptly places his chopsticks on the table with a loud thud, asking with a serious tone if he implying he knows everything in the curriculum and hence doesn't need school. Our boy nods, stating that he already knows what the teachers will teach, while his parents exchange unsure expressions. Our boy firmly explains that he doesn't need to learn what he already knows. His mom suddenly asks if he is being bullied, while his dad assures him they can talk about anything. With a calm demeanor, our boy declares he wants to become a lawyer. His family is astonished by his sudden declaration. The author explains that in Korea, you don't need to attend college to take the judiciary exam. One just needs to complete a law course, which is not an issue for our boy. He reassures his family not to worry, as he has everything figured out, including his school diploma. Despite his reassurance, his mom is still unsure. Just then, our boy raises a finger, requesting a condition. He will write and pass both the high school diploma exam and the CSAT, College Scholastic Ability Test, a highly difficult exam administered once a year, in the same year. This statement puts his dad in a tight spot, while his mom tries to comfort him. His dad finally reassures him, stating that though he is worried, any failure will just be a learning experience and encourages our boy to give it his best shot. The scene shifts to our boy's school, where he is seen studying in class. One of his classmates wonders why he is studying so hard and asks him to join them at the cafeteria. Our boy declines, stating he is busy and they should go ahead. The classmate comments that it's not even exam season yet. Our boy quickly tells them to be quiet, pointing out that he doesn't have much time left before the CSAT exam. They are all shocked about how he will take the exam despite being in his second junior year. The scene then shifts to another building, where our boy is studying hard for the upcoming exam. Looking at some past questions, he realizes they are a bit difficult and different from his previous attempt. Suddenly, he feels a weird sensation and stands up abruptly. He questions what he is feeling mentally. Looking at other people studying, our boy swears he is sensing something off but couldn't pinpoint it. Time passes quickly. We see our boy taking a drink from a vending machine. As he opens it, he comments that the weird feeling must be due to studying hard lately. After taking a drink, He concludes that he is probably just overexhausted. He tosses the empty can into a bin, but it misses and hits the rim. He sighs, complaining that nothing is going right. As he approaches the bin, he discovers another can and questions if it was difficult to throw a can away. Immediately upon touching the can, he feels the same sensation again and sees someone, leaving him in shock. He quickly drops the can. Looking at his palm, he wonders what is happening to him. He tries to calm down, thinking it is just a hallucination. He attempts to pick up the can again, commenting that it is all in his mind. But then, the sensation triggers again, and he sees a guy in white chatting with his friend. The guy says he wishes to have fun at a cafe rather than study for a boring exam. Our boy, still holding the can, wonders why he is seeing such things. Walking away in the hallway, he cites the feeling to tiredness and thinks it is just his imagination. He returns to his desk, thinking he needs to get back to studying because he has a lot to cover. But the moment he touches his desk, the sensation, or rather his ability, is triggered again, leaving him with a confused and tense expression. This time, he sees someone studying, and the guy is really motivated. Noticing the scene is somehow related to the past, our boy wonders why this is happening to him. Next, we see him asking a worker about the person who previously studied at his desk. The worker replies it was a chubby fellow who failed the CSAT exam twice but eventually got into one of the best medical schools. Our boy asks suspiciously if the guy wore glasses and had a buzz cut. The older man is surprised and curious if our boy knows the fellow. Back home, our boy decides he needs to do some research. He types frantically, looking up the word psychometry, and learned it was the ability to see past events or memories tied to objects. Our boy, deep in thought, remarks that this must be an ability he got as he regressed, but he wonders if he should be happy about it. Then, he shifts his attention to an object next to him. Realizing it is his sister's wallet, he decides to test his ability. After touching the wallet, he is amazed to see numbers. Curious, he decides to go for the number 1 and reaches out to it. Our boy is immediately stunned by what he sees. It turns out to be a rated content between Park and his sister. He watches them with a sour expression, thinking to himself that it has not been long since they met, and they are already making moves.
Our boy feels a tinge of sadness and guilt, apologizing inwardly for potentially destroying the future of the Grim Reaper of school violence. However, thinking about Jo Hyukwoo, he reassures himself that it was better this way. If he hadn't intervened, she might have ended up with that fool. Mid-thought, he pauses. He wonders about the numbers he saw in his vision. Could they represent a date and time? Excited by this possibility, he realizes the combinations are limited, making it easier to decipher. After 3 hours of test runs, our boy comes to a staggering conclusion. Firstly, he can only see and read memories when he touches an object. Secondly, powerful memories take precedence, while unrelated memories either fade away or become hazy. Thirdly, picking a specific time or period is possible only if there are multiple or strong feelings from that specific time. And lastly, he needs accurate information about the specific moment to see unimportant memories. This was the extent of his understanding of his powers for now. Later, his sister arrives home, announcing that she already had dinner. No surprise there. Our boy makes a comment that catches her attention. When she questions him about it, he deflects, teasing her about her hearing. Then, with a sly grin, he asks about her first kiss. Startled, she wonders if Park told him something, but our boy casually reveals it was just a guess, but he hit the mark. However, his accuracy makes her threaten him. He cheekily suggests a $10 bribe to keep his mouth shut, leaving her fuming. Later, we see our boy in bed, pondering how his ability is affecting his focus on studies. He wonders if his powers are related to concentration and decides to experiment. The next day at school, the homeroom teacher announces the end of the test and looks forward to seeing them tomorrow. Some students are excited about finishing. Our boy is excited too, realizing how his abilities helped him during the test. However, some classmates interrupt his thoughts, inviting him to play a newly launched game at a cafe. Intrigued, he mentally thanks his abilities for making studying easier and decides to have some fun. As he's packing his stuff, he notices someone accidentally drop a case. Immediately, he picks it up and hands it back to the owner, a girl named Yoon Maon. She thanks him politely, and as she reaches for the case, his ability is triggered. Puzzled, she tells him with a calm tone to let go now. Collecting himself, he does. As she walks away, she says she see him later. Our boy is left wondering what he saw. Realizing he needs to verify it immediately, he apologizes to his classmates, saying he can't attend the gaming session. They express confusion, asking if he needed to study or if he had lady troubles and now a girlfriend. Reflecting on the remark about lady trouble, our boy realizes it's something he can't overlook. The scene shifts to our boy waiting in the hallway, spotted by his homeroom teacher. Approaching closely, the teacher asks why the top student of his class is waiting. Concerned, our boy states he's waiting for Yoon Myung, who has been in the office for over an hour. The teacher knocks, calling out Mr. Lee and announcing that our boy is waiting for Yoon Myung. Mr. Lee, opening slightly surprised, asks what Mr. Park the teacher wants. He is even more surprised to see our boy. However, our boy apologizes, explaining they have somewhere important to be, and it will be problematic if they are late. Mr. Lee reluctantly agrees, calling Yoon Myung out. With a soft tone, Yoon Myung responds, while Mr. Lee advises her not to slack in her studies despite our boy being her boyfriend, which she agrees to. Our boy notices the way Mr. Lee's hand grabs Yoon Myung's shoulder, expressing his gratitude for giving her extra lessons. Her facial expression reveals the true meaning of his extra lessons. Our boy watches with a sharp gaze, thinking he has found his next target. Later, while on the swings, Yoon Myung asks our boy why he waited for her, pointing out that he even went as further as lying. Our boy, stuttering, tries to explain, but she cuts him off, teasing him about how the top student of their class can sometimes stutter. Now remembering he didn't interact much with her in his previous life, our boy senses her curiosity. She wants to know what's on his mind. He asks if he should say it, or if she will. Startled, she exclaims that nothing happened and questions what he really meant. With a calculating tone, he points out her reaction, saying he didn't mention anything specific. Cornered, she begins to tear up. Seeing her cry, our boy feels sad and remorseful. He gently assures her she can tell him the truth. She begins to explain her dad's alcoholism and gambling addiction, mentioning she couldn't ask anyone for help. When he inquires about her mom, with tears rolling down, she reveals that her mom passed away. Understanding the dire situation, our boy realizes reporting to the police would be futile. He then asks if Mr. Lee ever lays hands on her or does anything bad. She explains that thanks to our boy today, the teacher calls her every day, making her scared. Gritting his teeth, our boy wonders how Mr. Lee can call himself a teacher while doing such awful things. He decides to help, adding that he can't do this alone and will need assistance. The following day, in Hyunjin's classroom, Mr. Lee punishes him for his recent actions. Even the students are worried about Mr. Lee's frequent punishments. The shameless teacher justifies his discipline by claiming it was because our boy was solving higher grade math problems in class. Our boy explains that it's because there's nothing left for him to learn, which touches a nerve for Mr. Lee. What follows is a barrage of caning, and our boy can only endure the pain. At the school cafeteria, our boy notices something important. Mr. Lee doesn't call Yoon Myung during recess. He promises to look out for her. As school ends, Hyunjin lets out a big yawn, relieved that the day is finally over. He then notices a student approaching Yoon Myung, passing along a message from Mr. Lee wanting to see her before she goes home. Watching this, he curses Mr. Lee under his breath. Hyunjin checks his watch, wondering what's taking so long when Mr. Park, his homeroom teacher, shows up. Surprised to see him, Mr. Park asks if he is waiting for Yoon Myung again, and our boy affirms that she is a bit late. Mr. Park cheerfully remarks about them being a couple, causing our boy to chuckle slightly. Next, Mr. Park goes into the teacher's office and requests Mr. Lee to let Yoon Myung go already since our boy is waiting for her. Visibly annoyed by our boy's persistence, he adds that Hyunjin might be petrified if he keeps waiting. However, Mr. Lee pulls a false smile, stating he's done with her already. Then he turns to Yoon Myung, questioning what kind of relationship she has with our boy and if they are dating. Before she leaves, he advises her to be careful, as he's watching everything. She trembles in fear but remains silent. Outside the office, our boy senses someone approaching. Seeing Yoon Myung, he asks if it was hard enduring what she went through. Still receiving silence from her, he praises her for holding up and suggests they leave. Meanwhile, Mr. Liu watches them walk out of the school premises from his office window. As they walk, our boy suggests they grab something spicy. when she mentions she doesn't like spicy dishes. He suggests trying it anyway as it helps relieve stress. The next day arrives, and our boy is dumbstruck by Mr. Lee's actions, while other classmates express concern. Noting it has become routine, Mr. Lee, enraged, calls our boy out, as whispers grow louder suggesting Mr. Lee's recent actions are because he discovered our boy was dating Yoon Myeon, surprising the other classmates. Approaching Mr. Lee, our boy states he was requested, but Mr. Lee tells him not to glare at him. With a serious look, our boy glances at the mop stick in Mr. Lee's hand and asks if he plans to hit him with that. Surprised by his boldness, Mr. Lee is speechless. Our boy, emitting a confident aura, explains that hitting him with the mop stick constitutes as special violence and using a dangerous object, urging him to think carefully with a threatening tone. Seeing no reaction from the teacher, our boy announces his departure. Later that day, the couple walks together and she apologizes, but our boy reassures her it's not her fault and that Mr. Lee is just a bad man. She thanks him but questions what he plans to do, fearing his life might turn into a living hell if this continues. Our boy agrees, stating that sticking with her has its limitations. However, he understands that someone as bad as Mr. Lee will definitely call her after graduation because they don't easily let their victims go. Hyunjin pauses as she explains he can stop whenever he wants. Our boy tells her to listen closely, pointing out that the situation wasn't hopeless. Puzzled, she asks what he meant. He explains that the method he has in mind would work only if she's prepared to see it through to the end. Looking at her trembling hand, he exclaims that she doesn't have to do it if she doesn't want to. She immediately apologizes, stating she can't do it, her head low. He smiles, telling her he understands and there's no need to apologize. She apologizes once more and then reveals that she believes she isn't the first victim, explaining that when Mr. Lee feels excited, he sometimes calls out names of other girls. Our boy is shocked, noting that the man is worse than a pig. He gently places his hand on hers, making her wide-eyed, and thanks her for sharing. He tells her to leave everything to him. Next, we see an institution called the Saint of Single Mothers. The author explains that the institution was built for single ladies who failed to get married in Korea. Our boy, looking at the building, thinks about how much of a scumbag Mr. Lee is, having for victims, two of whom are college students. One of the victims is a part of this institution. Inside the building, in the counselor's room, Hyunjin asks if he can meet someone named Miss Kong. The lady there stops him, pointing out that meeting with males is prohibited because all mothers hate them. If that's the case, our boy understands but asks to leave his contact. After entering his name, he asks the lady to pass on a message for him, asking if Miss Kong has any desire for revenge. Time passes slowly. We see someone holding a cup, asking if our boy was looking for her. She comments on how young he is. With that, Miss Kong Soang asks our boy what business he has with her. Our boy mentions the teacher's name, Lee Gyu-song, and states that he came here because of him. Shaken, she asks if another student ended up a victim. Our boy quickly affirms, adding that her mom is dead, her dad is a drunkard, and the girl is a nice person. She understands, with a sharp gaze, and deduces that if the matter were reported, her dad would ask for money, but if she reports him, she'd be seen as someone who gets a payoff. Our boy thinks Miss Kong must have a reason to meet him, and if she's part of the institution, it means she's ready to raise her child and will definitely need money. He proposes for her to help report the teacher in return for finding her child's biological father and getting child support, adding that he's no average lawyer. She doesn't need to pay any attorney fees, shocking her. Our boy explains that lawyers usually don't mention it, but one can represent themselves in civil cases, although the entire process is challenging. And the reason lawyers remain silent about it is the potential loss of jobs, plus seeking financial gain isn't against the law. He further explains it's illegal to charge someone for a legal case without qualifications like himself. She asks what she can do, obviously ready to get that juicy child support. Hyunjin reassures her they'll follow the process step by step and concludes their deal with a handshake, promising she won't regret it. She agrees, adding she'd be in our boy's care, and he thinks it's time for Mr. Lee to experience something worse than hell. The next scene, Hyunjin hands a can drink to Yoon Myeon. Afterward, he gets down to business by asking what Mr. Lee told her. She immediately reveals that he wants to see her every weekend, making our boy bewildered. Now teary eyes, Our boy tells her to listen to him. He explains that to get out of this situation, they first need to deal with her dad. She explains with a trembling voice that her dad is always drunk and can't be reasoned with. Our boy suggests she needs to be ready to protect herself, but she asks how she can do it, pointing out that no one wants to hear her out. Hyungjin, informing her that isn't the case, leaves her dumbstruck. He assures her that as long as she trusts him, the situation isn't impossible. The next day, our boy investigates in the area, asking questions about Yoon Maung's dad. A lady in red reports that the poor guy is always so drunk, and she feels sorry for his daughter. Other people mention that Mr. Yoon will eventually get what he deserves because he owes money. The scene shifts to the state attorney's office in the city. We meet the same man at the desk. He asks what Hyunjin wants, wondering if he is filing another complaint. Our boy affirms that he is studying law and helping people for free. The man is surprised to hear he is studying law by himself and even more shocked to see the report is perfect with nothing missing. Yoon Maung suddenly chimes in wanting to submit a report that proves her identity. The man is impressed, mentally noting Yoon Maung is underage and has no ID card, so this was all prepared in advance. The author explains that our boy's case involves a quasi-incompetence act, which limits the actions of people who can't live normally and involves the adult guardian system, meaning a judge appoints a guardian for someone with physical or mental limitations. Our boy asks if they are done. Later that day, Yoon Maung's dad is furious that she filed a complaint against him, asking her if she has a death wish. Our boy, present at the scene, wonders what's taking so long. Finally, the people he was waiting for arrive. A man in black insists that Yoon's dad needs treatment, but the man struggles. Even the police are involved. Her father, clearly drunk, threatens everyone nearby, wondering if they wish to die and claiming he doesn't need any treatment. In a fit of rage, he breaks an alcohol bottle and threatens anyone who comes close, promising to send them to the afterlife. The man in black, acting as the legal representative, informs the police that Yoon's dad is threatening people and requests he be restrained. The police fire electric darts, electrocuting him and causing him to lose consciousness and fall to the ground. The man in black orders that Yoon Maung be brought out. She comes out scared and teary-eyed. The legal representative promises to make an official report, requesting her father be hospitalized in a mental institution due to the danger and violence he poses. Just then, she notices our boy watching with a calm expression. Later, at the park, she thanks our boy. As they sit on the swing, she comments on how everything went as he predicted, and he affirms this. With her head low, she asks what it means that the court classified her dad as incompetent. Puzzled by her expression, he explains it is similar to the Quasi case from before but stronger, which surprises her. He adds that her dad is now blocked from taking any legal action. He reminds her that they still have one more target to deal with, Mr. Lee. He explains that 4 of Mr. Lee's victims have decided to file a complaint, and this time there will be no escape. With a determined aura, he asks her to come with him, promising to protect her to the end. She agrees, thanking him in the process. Is there any chemistry between them? Let me know in the comments. The next moment, we see Mr. Lee knocking on Yoon Maung's door at night, pleading for her to open up, insisting they did what they did because they loved each other. Interesting, our protagonist had Yoon Maung stay at his house. He predicted Mr. Lee would visit her. People like him would test first and then settle by finding their victims. She asked if Mr. Lee would visit other victims too, and our boy affirmed. Hyungjin, resting his chin, wishes the police would take this case more seriously. He acknowledges the police usually give out contact information about victims, but the system is underdeveloped and will eventually improve in the future. He reassures her with a smile, telling her not to worry and that he will take care of everything. The scene shifts to our boy's dad having a conversation with him. His dad demands to know why a teacher is visiting their house continuously. Our boy keeps his composure as his dad presses for answers, adding that he knows Hyungjin isn't someone to do stuff without a reason. Our boy decides to tell his father the truth. The next moment, his father slams his fist on the table, enraged, wondering how Mr. Lee can call himself a teacher. Our boy tries to calm him down, but his father fights back, asking why he should let it slide, pointing out he has a daughter too. Our boy assures him that this is his battle, and he is well prepared, so his father shouldn't stress himself. His dad, now calm but visibly worried, decides to trust our boy, who thanks him. However, his dad suggests a condition. But before that, we slide to the next day. Yoon Maung and Hyunjin are walking and chatting. She compliments his parents for being good people, but surprised when our boy states she will be staying in a hotel from now on. However, she understands, voicing that she felt like a burden to his family and made them uncomfortable. Our boy dismisses her worries, recounting his conversation with his father the other day. His dad's condition was that she stay in a hotel, which he will cover. Our boy protested, noting it wasn't fine to leave her by herself. His dad reassured him to hear his reasoning. He pointed out that Yoon Maung seemed anxious due to Mr. Lee visits and believed she was a burden to their family. Mr. Lee only visited to add salt to the wounds, and he wanted her to relax in peace. In the present, our boy explains this to Yoon Maung, asking if she understands now. She lowers her head and apologizes for jumping to conclusions. Our boy tells her not to worry, reminding her they're close to the finish line. He reassures her mentally, promising to protect her at all costs. The scene shifts to the principal's office at school, where an emergency meeting is being held. Mr. Lee is enraged by our boy's accusation of him committing such an act against a student. One of the teachers tries to calm him down, but his anger is palpable. Our boy, sitting on a couch opposite them, asks if he said something wrong. The teacher attempts to explain the gravity of the situation. Then, our boy informs Mr. Lee not to tarnish the good names of teachers with his actions. Mr. Lee can only curse at him in rage, while the teacher continues trying to pacify the situation. Turning his attention to the principal, our boy states that there are 4 victims and questions why the school didn't take action. The principal replies that none of the allegations were substantial enough to warrant action. The principal then suggests settling the situation with an apology to Miss Yoon Maung. Our boy realizes that the principal intends to protect the teacher at all costs and finds the loyalty misguided. The principal, an old man in his 70s, suggests settling the matter once and for all. Closing his eyes and sighing, our boy comments that if that's what they want, they leave him no choice. He pulls out an envelope and states that they will soon receive a call from the court. He explains that he wants to inform them of what's coming ahead of time. The principal is visibly alarmed and bewildered. Our boy explains that the document in his hand is a restraining order issued by the court. He states that Mr. Lee, the assailant, must stay 200 meters away from both him and the victim, Yoon Maung. The principal's eyes widen in shock, almost as if they might pop out of their sockets. Continuing, our boy informs them that the restraining order is effective immediately upon issuance. Mr. Lee glares at him with gritted teeth, his blood pressure visibly surging as he curses loudly. Without hesitation, our boy demands that Mr. Lee leave and maintain a distance of 200 meters. The principal, trembling and enraged, mentally accuses our boy of taking things too far. But before he can finish, the principal interrupts, pointing out that Mr. Lee's actions are indefensible. Then, the principal turns on our boy, accusing him of overstepping by pushing to have a teacher removed from the school. Little did the principal know, our boy wasn't finished. With a calm yet authoritative tone, our boy counters by pointing out that Mr. Lee's refusal to follow the restraining order is an immediate violation. Next, our boy dials the police. He states that he's calling because the restraining order has been violated and adds that he feels scared and threatened. Moments later, the police arrive at the principal's office. Our boy advises Mr. Lee to comply with the restraining order. As Mr. Lee is dragged out, he desperately calls for the principal to intervene. Our boy turns to the principal and asks if he will suspend the teacher or if he should file accusations for negligence in school administration. The principal, visibly anxious, asks what that would entail. Our boy, emitting a dominant aura, explains that the principal's duty is to protect students from harm. By aiding Mr. Lee, the principal is failing in that responsibility. He calmly but firmly adds that if the principal doesn't suspend Mr. Lee, he will file a civil complaint for maladministration of the school district. The principal, visibly shaken, wonders how someone so young, only 15 years old, can be this resolute. Finally, the principal relents and agrees to suspend Mr. Lee immediately. With that, the meeting concludes. The next scene shows our boy and Yoon Maung sitting in a park. He expresses concern about her well-being. She reassures him that she's doing well thanks to his support, which makes him feel grateful. She brings up how the teachers at school now resent him because of her. Our boy dismisses her concerns with a smirk, stating he has no business with them. She chuckles lightly. Then, she informs him about a distant relative and mentions that she might be moving away. He is happy for her encouraging her to embrace the change and reminding her not to forget him. Time passes, and the scene shifts to the police station. A cop wonders aloud why a student is present during the interrogation. With a dismissive look, our boy, arms crossed, states that he's both a witness and a friend. The cop, indifferent, tells him to go home, as it isn't the day for his testimony. Scoffing internally, our boy suspects the cop has been bribed and wonders how to deal with him. The interrogation begins. The cop asks a puzzling question, inquiring whether the victims did what Mr. Lee suggested, or if he threatened them with a weapon. Both Miss Kong and Yoon Maung struggle to answer, hesitant and silent. The cop concludes that they must have complied with Mr. Lee's requests. Our boy, arms still crossed, watches intently before suddenly cutting him off. Irritated, the cop asks why he's interrupting. Stepping closer, our boy asks if he needs to remind the officer about interrogation guidelines or if he has simply forgotten them. The cop is dumbstruck. Our boy calmly explains that interrogations involving explicit matters in public are forbidden. He continues, stating that victims have the right to request a female interrogator. Additionally, if the victim is underage, a child psychologist must be present to prevent trauma. Realizing his mistake, the cop blames it on overwork and agrees to their requests. Miss Kong immediately requests a female officer, while Yoon Maung asks for a child psychologist. Time passes, and the scene shifts to the women's counseling office at the station. With their requests granted, the female interrogator asks our boy to wait outside the office. He agrees but asks if this will be an interrogation or an investigation. The female officer, confused, asks what he means. Our boy explains that if it's a simple victim investigation, he doesn't need to be present. However, victims have the right to request the presence of someone they trust for mental stability. Both Miss Kong and Yoon Maung request for him to stay, which irritates the female officer. Our boy notices the nameplate of the female officer and feels it's oddly familiar. Excusing himself, he claims he needs to use the restroom. As he walks away, he reflects on her name and decides to look it up. The revelation dawns on him, and he immediately remembers where he's seen the name before. Rushing back into the women's counseling office, he interrupts the interrogation. The female officer, Yoon Seok-soon, demands to know why he's making a fuss. With a firm tone, our boy states that she isn't qualified to handle the case. Our boy, face to face with the female officer, tells her once more that she is not qualified for the case. The child psychologist turns to the female officer, asking what is wrong. Holding a paper in his hand, our boy requests a change of officer, citing the background information he dug up. Yoon Seok-soon, observing this, wonders aloud about our boy's reasoning. Calmly, our boy explains that he noticed the officer's name and decided to conduct a background check. He discovered that the officer is a supporter and advocate for sexual offenders. Both Yoon and Miss Kong are shocked by this revelation. Realizing she has been caught, the officer tries to excuse herself, claiming it was a different case. However, our boy, annoyed, cuts her off, pointing out that it doesn't matter. If it was a different case, it doesn't change what she said. A flashback reveals her words during the previous case. The girl got what she deserved. Kids these days are annoying. Back in the present, Yoon Seok-soon starts sweating bullets as our boy recounts the event, adding that he saw her exact statement in the news. Our boy presses further, questioning how she could call herself an officer in charge of sexual offenses. The child psychologist agrees with our boy, citing the possibility of such behavior recurring and demanding a different officer for the case. Our boy watches with satisfaction as the disgraced officer walks away. Time passes, and another female officer is assigned to the case. The psychologist requests the officer to proceed. Just then, our boy addresses Miss Kong as Big Sister, instructing her to record the session. Before she can reply, she asks the new officer if it's illegal for victims to record their sessions. The officer disagrees, surprising Miss Kong. The psychologist compliments Miss Kong, saying she must be proud to have such a smart brother. She replies casually, of course, adding that it feels great to have a little lawyer of her own. After the event, she thanks our boy for his help, remarking that without him, they would have been in trouble multiple times. Our boy also thanks her for not giving up and believing in him, adding that they still have some matters to settle. The scene shifts to Mr. Lee on a phone call, pleading with a lawyer for help, as he doesn't have the funds at the moment. Realizing he's out of options, he begins regretting his life choices. The author explains, victims don't necessarily need to participate in trials as they're represented by the state prosecutor. However, offenders require a lawyer or must defend themselves. If they fail to do so, an adequate punishment will be imposed. The scene shifts again to a moving truck, signaling it's finally time for Yoon Myung to move out. Our boy comments on how the law seems to favor Mr. Lee, but regardless, he'll face punishment for breaking it. As Yoon Myung avoids his gaze, she timidly asks if she could call him sometimes. Our boy cuts her off mid-sentence, welcoming the idea and adding that he'll be waiting for her call. He also reminds her to take good care of herself. Before leaving, she expresses her feelings. Our boy is momentarily stunned, clearly not expecting this. She bolts off before he can respond, telling the truck driver she's ready to go. In the vehicle, she smiles, staring at his figure in the mirror, thanking him for saving her from what could have been a hellish life. Mentally, she promises not to forget her lawyer as tears fill her eyes. Meanwhile, our boy is lost in thought, musing that a kiss wasn't bad as an attorney fee. His moment is short-lived as someone calls him from behind. Shocked, he discovers it's his elder sister. His jaw nearly hits the ground as she teases him for being sly, calling him a naughty little one. With an eerie grin, she teases about telling their mom, prompting our boy to offer her money in exchange for silence. However, she demands interest for his recent antics. Gritting his teeth in annoyance, our boy hands her $5. The next day, our boy reads the news and discovers that Mr. Lee has been sentenced to 5 years. Clearly unimpressed, he wishes Mr. Lee would drop the soap while in jail, thinking that if he had followed up on the case, the sentence would have been extended by 2 years. As he walks down the road, he reflects that the case with the teacher is over and shifts his focus to Miss Kang Sweung's paternity case. He also realizes he needs to study for the university entrance exam. The next scene takes place in a cafe, where our boy discusses the lawsuit with Miss Kang. He remarks that it won't be difficult, adding that most of the work has already been done. Miss Kang expresses surprise, noting that she didn't know lawsuits and paternity tests were so straightforward. Our boy agrees, explaining that paternity claims and child support cases are simple when backed by solid evidence. Miss Kang, a bit slow, asks about the solid evidence. With a smug expression, our boy mutters, DNA, adding that there's no evidence more solid than genes. As he hands her the folder containing the DNA test results, she thanks him for covering the costs, admitting she never imagined having to pay for such things. Unbothered, our boy assures her that they just need to submit the documents to court. He expects everything to proceed smoothly from now on. The following day, however, our boy breaks the bad news to Miss Kang, stating that the case was dismissed. Startled, she reminds him of his earlier claim that the case would be easy. Our boy explains that during the time they were dealing with Mr. Lee about 2 months ago, the man identified as her child's father died in a car accident. Shocked, Miss Kang questions if he's really dead, calling out her child's name, Youngmin, as she wonders what they can do now. Worried, she apologizes to her son, lamenting that she can't raise him without a father or child support. Our boy watches in silence as she cries, mentally calculating his next move. Suddenly, he has an idea. He tells Miss Kang there's a solution, making her pause. He explains that genes are passed down through generations, suggesting they use the grandparents as a match. And sure, Miss Kang questions if that's possible. Our boy cuts her off mid-sentence, stating firmly that it doesn't matter if it's possible or not, this is how the law works. With a determined look, he assures her that they'll succeed. The scene shifts to Miss Kang Sweung standing in front of a building, recalling our boy's words about reusing the man's skills. The place she needed to be was the Findle agency. Previously, in the cafe, our boy handed her a piece of paper with an address, instructing her to head there and give the note to the person she would meet. He added that she was looking for someone. As he handed over the note, he noticed her hesitation. To reassure her, he explained that the place wasn't scary, all while wondering if the man at this point in his regression would already be bald. He was curious to find out. Upon arriving at the agency, she handed the note to a bald, dark-skinned man with a golden tooth, clearly the supervisor. The man assured her that what she needed could be arranged with just a few phone calls. He told her to wait for a while. Time passed, and the story shifts back to the cafe. Our boy asked her how it went. She explained how the man at the agency managed to get everything she needed. Our boy, still curious, asked if the man was bald. She replied that he still had some hair left, but none on top. Hearing this, he choked, mentally noted that the man had lied in the past about having a full head of hair. When our boy opened the folder with the documents, he was stunned. He commented that the situation wasn't good. Miss Kong asked if something was wrong with the documents. "It would be better if something were wrong," he replied. "But now we know exactly who the father of your child is." The grandfather of Miss Kang's child was someone called Yu Min-taek, a name that clearly spelled trouble from our boy's reaction. Still curious and lost, Miss Kong asked our boy who that was, adding, "Is he someone powerful?" Our boy wasn't surprised she didn't know. Explaining further, he revealed that Yu Min-taek was the CEO of Daryong Company. She was momentarily stunned. She asked again, incredulously, "Do you mean the Daryong Company?" Our boy calmly remarked that her child's father had not revealed his true identity while they were dating. Based on her expression, that much was obvious. Miss Kong could only curse under her breath, assuming the man hadn't trusted her enough. Our boy, maintaining his calm tone, asked if she was sure that the man was truly her son's father. With a worried expression, she affirmed it. With this in mind, our boy declared, "This is now an inheritance case." Miss Kong, still processing everything, wondered why that would matter, pointing out that they were rich, and child support wouldn't be an issue. Our boy explained that Yu Min-taek had 3 sons. The eldest died in an accident at a young age. Her husband was also dead, leaving only one son, the youngest, who was married and had 2 daughters. In short, he continued, "If Yu Min-taek acknowledges this case, there is a chance your child could be an heir to the company." He added that her child's grandfather's assets were worth over $1 billion, and her son could inherit $600 million, the share her husband would have received. Stunned, she questioned whether her baby could actually inherit that amount. Our boy recalled from his previous life that Yu Sang-ho, the youngest son, managed the company but, due to greed and incompetence, led it to ruin within 10 years. Even more puzzling was the fact that both brothers had died in car accidents under suspicious circumstances. Looking at Miss Kang's worried expression, our boy remembered that Daryong was not an easy company to deal with. Mentally, he lamented how the situation had become so complicated. Calling for her attention, he declared, "Child support or not, inheritance is the main issue here." He explained that her son, Youngmin, was the only direct male descendant of CEO Yu Min-taek. Trembling, Miss Kong asked what he meant. He replied, "Considering the conservative personality of the grandfather, there is a high probability that your son will be seen as the direct heir to the entire company." Our boy internally complained, realizing that what he thought would be a simple case involving a foolish teacher had now turned into stepping on a landmine. The scene shifts to Daryong Company headquarters. In the director's office, Yu Sang-ho, the youngest son of Yu Min-taek, asked a staff member if it was true that a lawsuit had been filed against his brother. The staff explained that the case had been dismissed because his brother had passed away. Frustrated, Yu Sang-ho slammed his fist on the table. The staff continued, revealing that he had researched the matter and found that the woman involved was Miss Kang Seo, one of the many women his brother had dated. Fuming with rage, Yu Sang-ho cursed his brother, Yu Sang-min, for causing him trouble even after death. Then he asked, "Was it really a boy?" The staff confirmed, pointing out that the paternity test had already proven it. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Yu Sang-ho realized that no one would dare lie using Daryong Group's name. The staff also mentioned that Miss Kong was currently staying at a house for single mothers. Yu Sang-ho immediately instructed him to go there and make her withdraw the lawsuit. He also ordered him to ensure that no documents from the court reached his father, adding that the case could become troublesome if his father found out. After giving his orders, he dismissed the staff. Left alone, Yu Sang-ho stared out the window, muttering bitterly about how his brother was still holding him back, even in death. The next day approached quickly, and the scene shifted to a hotel. Inside, our boy advised Miss Kong to stay there for now. She questioned why she couldn't return to the single mother facility. Our boy explained that they were dealing with a major company, and it wouldn't take long for them to discover the lawsuit and its dismissal. In fact, they had probably already found out. Still confused, Miss Kong asked why a dismissed lawsuit would be a concern for them. Our boy mentally considered a rumor he had heard in his past life. If the rumor was true, Yu Sang-ho had already begun making moves. He told her to wait as he needed to confirm something. Before leaving, Miss Kong asked if he could bring her baby's belongings from the facility, and he affirmed without hesitation. The scene shifts to the house for single mothers. Luxury black cars lined up outside, giving the impression that a VIP was visiting. It turned out to be Yu Sang-ho, dropping off supplies for the women at the facility. One of the staff members asked if Miss Kong was present, adding that the patron of the group wanted to see her. Another explained that she wasn't currently there. Meanwhile, Our boy arrived at the facility and was shocked to see the cars. He noted that they had found the place faster than he had imagined. Looking at the cardboard boxes stacked nearby, he wondered if they were delivered here. Our boy glanced at his hand, clearly planning something. He already suspected who sent them but needed to confirm whether it was Yumintake or his son,